Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Western Spirit Podcast. Today, we're with someone very special who I think you guys will really enjoy. Today, we're going to speak with Khalifa Khalifa. Khalifa is a Druze influencer, not Jews, Druze, for you guys who might not know. We'll explore who the Druze are in a minute, but first I'll just say he's a Druze influencer. He's an activist, and he's also the host of the Khalifa Shrugged podcast, and we both love Atlas Shrugged, so I guess that makes we have a lot in common. So Khalifa, it's great to speak with you finally.
Such a privilege to be here. Thank you so much. It's not a coincidence that you mixed up between Jews and Druze.
We have a lot in common.
Because I always say that Druze are Jews with no benefits.
Okay, but hopefully we will get that fixed too.
Yeah, okay.
Khalifa, let's talk about who the Druze are before, just to get the first minute or two of the program. Give us, in short, who the Druze are, where are they located, because we hear a lot about them in Israel, about what's happening with the war, Syria, but give us a little bit of a background.
Okay, well, basically, to make a long story very short, just like the Jews, we came out of Egypt and we are mainly in the Mediterranean places in Syria, which is the largest Druze community. Estimation goes between 500,000 to 1 million, basically living, most of them in the southern part of Syria. Next to that, you'll have in Lebanon a big, significant community, around 300,000. Some estimations say it's 400,000 because a lot of Druze fled
from Syria
to Lebanon, and the third largest community is here in Israel. Only 150,000 Druze, and there's a small community in Jordan which we never hear about, and we're not gonna discuss it because they are under bad circumstances. Let's put it this way. And the Druze, basically, the only place that they can be themselves is in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
They live in places that, like Syria, that they've been taught from early ages that Israel is a monstrous country and the Jews are very bad, and they heard so many anti-Semitic ideas about the Jews. So, and this is relevant to all the Arabic states. I discuss a lot about the idea of the Arabic anti-Semitic notions. It's so significant. I don't think that, the common listener would understand how broad these ideas are in the Arabic-speaking language. So basically, as you can understand, we have our own religion. The first thing that you should understand about the Druze is that we believe in reincarnation.
Yes.
So the religion itself started 1,000 years ago. And what's interesting about the Druze that in 1043, they closed the calling to allow another participant to become Druze. So you can't become Druze.
Right. They don't proselytize, meaning they don't allow other people to become Druze.
Exactly.
There's no way to become a Druze except for being born into it.
Into it by both parents, which is very important.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is what led me to start talking about the Druze, because here in Israel, a lot of people say, yeah, you're an Ashkenazi Jew. What you're talking about the Druze, which is true. I cultivated my Israeli/Jewish identity for most of my life, and now I'm discovering the Druze because I think that there's a heritage that is thousands of years old that is under a real threat of extinction. So basically, in order to camouflage themselves, the Druze, what they do, as I said, it's a closed sect. The religion itself is secretive, even to me, because I'm not religious. I can't read the scripts or, open a book and try to understand what is the Druze religion. I have some ideas, the large picture.
Basic tenets.
Exactly, but I don't really understand what the religion itself speaks about. And other than that, we don't have halachot, which means that you
Religious law.
religious law. Okay, I learned a word. So that means that in the public sphere, you won't have any presence of religious practices, calling for prayers or things like that. So we are very much like the Jews when they lived in Europe, when it was not so safe to be European and Jew. So in the public sphere, you will be just like the other next guy, and in your own domain, in your own house, you will practice your faith or what you believe.
But there are, by the way, just to stop you, there are the religious leaders. They wear their religious clothing. They are like I would say the prophets of the religion. So they'll be in all the like ceremonies of the Israeli government, Independence Day, the Day of Remembrance of the Fallen Soldiers. You'll have the leaders, the elders of the Druze community. They'll come, for example, to the cemetery or to the ceremony at the Mount Herzl, and they're dressed in their religious clothing. But those, like you say, they are the leaders of the religion. They know, they carry the torch of the religious, I guess, texts and study, and the rest of the people are following them, basically.
Exactly. Well, it's very interesting because you have dichotomic separation between the religious and those are not religious. So one very interesting thing about the Druze, that one who would like to be religious must come from free will. You will have no preaching for discovering God or trying to convince. Like for example, my father is a prominent Druze sheikh who's well known. He would never come and say to me, "Hey, I need you to just open a book. Maybe you'll see something."
I wish your father was like my father. The opposite. My father was like your father.
So, well, it has pros and cons like everything. But the idea is that you have separation between the spiritual world and the material, and they coexist and dance between each other. So we always would obey or respect our spiritual leaders. And now in Syria, for example, we will see Sheikh Hikmat al-Hijri, and he's the spiritual leader of the Druze community.
Wait, I will get to Syria right now.
Yeah.
Now that we know who the Druze basically are,
I will add one more important thing, that, as I said about the Druze identity, so in places that they are not so tolerant for other religious beliefs and minorities.
Like in the Muslim community.
Exactly. So you'll see that the Druze try to camouflage themselves as Muslims.
Yes.
They will practice things that, will make them... This practice called taqiyya, which means try to strengthen the things that are in common in the public sphere, and the things that is not so common, try to practice it in private. So in Syria, for example, you will see that the Druze community is called طائفة الموحدون المسلمون الدروز. Even if you don't understand Arabic,
you see the Muslim and the Druze.
Exactly. So they put the word Muslims, although we are not Muslims, and like we have our own interpretations for the Old Testament, for the New Testament, for all of those religious texts. But as I said, it's secretive, and we are not allowed to open it, and we are not Muslims. Here in Israel, we have the privilege to say that.
Yes.
They don't have it back there.
Right, and we're going to now understand. So we, since October 7th, the entire Middle East has pretty much changed. And one of the things that has been kept constant is, like you said, the persecution of the Druze. Mm-hmm. So even before October 7th, in the civil war in Syria, the Druze were being persecuted. We spoke about this before with someone before the show about how even years ago there was different jihadists that were trying to get to different Druze communities during the civil war. And then, especially after Bashar Assad fell, Mr. Julani Ashara, whatever he wants to be called next, took over the place. he still doesn't have, it seems to be, total control. He doesn't control all his people. It's very chaotic. What we do know is that there's been a number of attempts by different people associated with him, probably on his orders, but it doesn't even matter, that have come in and massacred Druze people.
It is,
It does matter, but wait, that I'll ask you about. But what I'm trying to say is that after Ashara Jolani took over, there have been numerous massacres of Druze in Syria. Until this day, there are Druze villages are still being controlled by jihadists that are trying to murder and massacre and kidnap Druze. And also, and you'll give us the details about it, as I understand it, there are still numerous hostages. That we talk a lot about the Israeli hostages in Gaza. There are Druze hostages in Syria as we speak, being tortured, we don't know what's exactly happening, but let's say not good things are happening to them. We don't know a lot of what happened to some of them. We haven't had any information. So give us just the overview. Who is responsible? What happened? What's going on?
Okay, I'll try to break it through, but just to sum up, because I didn't mention that we are native Arabic speakers.
Yes.
Okay, so that's very important. Second thing that you need to understand about the Druze, they are the best friends of the Jews here in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So from the early start of Israel, we served in the army. We start serving in the army. You have people like myself. We have the highest rate of
conscription,
volunteering to special forces. I'm an ex special forces guy. I served a lot of my understanding to the security forces. So they are the best friends of the Jews, and it's very significant because it pulls the rug underneath all the anti-Semitic Arabic agenda, because...
So they hate you the most.
Exactly. So I say always that, let's put aside the Druze. Let's discuss the Jews, for example. All the Arabic places were not safe for the Jews. And always, if they, for themselves, somehow the Jews suffered from it. Like the civil war in Lebanon got the Jews extinct out of it, and they didn't.
Syria too, and Iraq, and Afghanistan,
and Morocco,
and Egypt,
Tunisia, all of them.
Yeah.
So it's the same story with the Druze as well. So what's happened, basically, people don't remember that, but Jolani used to control a whole district in the northern part of Syria. So the Druze somehow had a notion what's going to be once Bashar al-Assad will fall. Because what happened, we used to have a small minority community of Druze living right next to Turkey border in the northern part of Syria, around 50 or 60,000 Druze. And once the Jolani came, he came as an ISIS fighter. After that, he established Jabhat al-Nusra, which is the Al-Qaeda branch, and somehow he became the leader of this district, and he basically commanded the whole occupation of what we are calling Syria, but it's not a country. It's like a Mad Max country. Every thugs and all sort of terror organization in the hundreds are fighting each other.
And from all over the world also. So you have people from China even, and the Uyghurs, and people from Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan.
It's a Mad Max on steroids. People don't realize that. It's like a large country, 180,000 kilometers wide, and it's so big and vast, yet you have this, I don't know
all
how
the crazy
to
people of the world came.
Exactly. And crazy place to live in. But what is common for all those people, that they, in some point, they put their anger to the Druze community, because, you know, you have a minority, it has no backing, and the Druze in the south part, they are always, you know, surrounded with Muslims and all kind of terrorists. So back to the Druze in the northern part of Syria, once Jolani became the leader there, they came and said, okay, who are you guys? What we are doing, just to put things in order. He came to establish an Islamic state. And it's not a state that, you know, it's called a state, but it's not a state. It's basically a caliphate.
It's a theocracy where if you're not his religion,
then you
either
have...
you die or you convert.
That's it. That's So they said, well, as I said, Taqiyya, so we are like a small sect in Islam. We are Druze. And as I said, you know, in order to become Druze, you need to have both of your parents are Druze. So Jolani and his friends, what they said, okay, so let me marry your daughter, and let me have your brother as a fighter, and let's you know, coexist together. You said that you are Muslim. Let me show me how you pray and things like that. For the lack of the Druze there, ISIS and Al-Qaeda start massacring each other, so somehow they forgot about them. But if you fast forward for today, the community that used to be 50,000 people are less than 2,000.
In the north.
Yeah, and a lot of them are not so considered as Druze, because they've been married by force with a lot of the like women over there, and we know how they treat women.
ISIS and everything, yeah.
Exactly. So, and those people have relatives in the southern part, so they knew that this ideology is coming to overcome them and to occupy their religion and everything. So the Druze is very well known that we believe in reincarnation, as I said, and we are very brave fighters. That's one of the things that are very attributed to the Druze community. So although you have a lot of minorities in Syria, you have the Kurds, you have the Yazidis,
Christians.
You have Christians, you have Alawites. Alawites are, you know, millions.
Yes.
And the Druze are like 500,000, 600,000, whatever that is. But they took the lead of trying to say to Mr. Jolani or Dr. Shara or whatever
He's
you
a
call.
doctor?
No, he's not a doctor, but it's, you know, Mr. Hyde and Dr.
Yes, okay.
Because he has two faces.
Yes.
So basically,
one for the West and one for inwards to the
exactly.
people.
He just need to say, hey, I just removed my uniform and I'm
Western.
I have a suit on myself now, and he's having a Time magazine cover.
Yeah.
So crazy times. And, you know, you had a second earlier $10 million bounty on his head, and now he's Mr. President. So this is the story. So the Druze community, led by Sheikh Hikmat al-Hijri, who is the spiritual leader of the Syrian community, of the Druze Syrian community. So before Bashar al-Assad fell, the Druze started to demonstrate. It started to, you know, break free, protest against what's happening. And they were basically on the December 8th, the first to enter Damascus as the freer of the land. So basically they somehow were victorious, and where everybody were thrilled and happy of the fall of Bashar al-Assad, and they said, okay, we have now what's gone is gone, let's establish a new state. But on the early stages, you know, everybody were so happy and, you know, dancing, Christians and Muslims, but things started to look bad very, very quickly. And the Druze said, okay, now we want, we will participate in this state under three conditions. It's going to be decentralized country, it's going to be democratic and secular state. That's the only, because we're not going to replace one dictatorship with another. Like if you change the color of the flag and we're still the same, then nothing's going to happen for us, and we're not going to, like, because they know it's a survival war. It's either you die or convert, and they are not willing to convert from obvious reasons. So, as I said, things start to go sideways. We had 3 months after that, where the Jolani forces, now what used to be a terror organization, is a state-like forces entering the coastal region with the Alawites. People say that between 9,000 to 30,000 people were slaughtered.
Yes, and we saw really disgusting videos come out of there, like beheadings and all this torture of people, and like
the kidnapping
of women, and we know what they do to kidnap women, and all. It was really horrible. But
and it's still, even now.
Wait, so that happened 3 months later, and
then March.
Yeah, and what happened? Take us a little bit to what happened, like, with the Druze in the past few months. Like, fast forward, so we can understand what's happening now, and like why everyone was talking about the Druze and Israel and everything in the past few.
I'm coming through the milestones of the important things. But as I said, negotiation was taking part. Jolani spoke something to the West, and he had the endorsement of MBS, Mohammed bin Salman.
And President Trump at some point.
And Turkey and Qatar and UAE. All the Sunni world was so thrilled about it.
And the sanctions were taken off. And all this.
Well, we can discuss what is their motives and logic, but it's not good for the Druze, because in Arabic, he made a constitution that has no representation of any minority, and he gave himself power even stronger than what Bashar al-Assad used to have. So it didn't work, and the only community who didn't yield was the Druze community, who after the massacre with the Alawites, which is very sad to say, but no Jews, no news, okay? Yeah. So nobody heard about it or even cared about, because the Alawites is the older regime, so you can...
Yeah, we should say that Bashar al-Assad was an Alawite, and so there was an element also of revenge.
Exactly.
And all this kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. But they... so the Druze spiritual leader, just to give in perspective where they live in Sweden, let's discuss Sweden. You have, among the provinces of Syria, one province which is mainly Druze. You have some Christians, but it's mainly Druze. It's sitting on a volcano, which the size of it's 5,550 kilometers. It's like a large place. But it's a mountain. It's a large mountain. So in order to have any, oxygen or supplements, you need... It goes with either two ways, Sueda Damascus or Sueda Dar'a, but that's the only connection to the outside world. And they are all surrounding with Muslim Sunni. In the back, they have the border with Jordan, who made it very clear, we're not gonna give you any exit to the outer world, no matter what. And they are so surrounded, and even yet, the spiritual leader after the massacre in Alawite said, this is a criminal government. We're not going to participate in that. We're not going to legitimize what's happening over there. We are calling for the international community to come and help us, because this is going bad.
We might be next.
Exactly. Everybody felt it. So what happened basically in April, 25th of April. So the main prophet of the Druze community is the prophet Jethro.
Yes.
Who has a connection.
Whose daughter married Moses according to the Bible.
Exactly. So we have this connection with the Jewish community, and they saw, because as I said, we believe in reincarnation. So the Druze, even me, that I don't have any connection to the Druze in Syria. Once I see one or speak to someone, he's my brother.
Yes.
She's my sister. Because according to my belief, if I'll die now, he is gonna probably be my father or my cousin or my uncle. So we have a very strong bond, which makes us so unique together as a community. So after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, we started, having some connections and talks.
The Druze in Israel and the Druze in Syria,
Yeah.
which we should say, Israel and Syria were enemies. And so there was a little bit of students maybe, but really no physical connection. There was what's called Givat HaTza'akot, Nachon, the
Yeah.
place. It was like a mountain on the border where people would go and scream to each other from both sides of the border.
Yeah.
There was people who would get married, and then let's say a bride, an Israeli Druze bride, would get married with a groom from Syria. The parents would never see her again because she would go live in Syria. There's no way for her to come back, and the opposite. So yeah,
until April 25th, which is a national holiday here, like for us, the Druze. It's not a national, but it's our one of our main visits to the Jethro tomb in the northern part, like just next to Tiberias.
yeah.
So those families, because we have blood connection, they had the opportunity to come and see Israel as it is, because they heard so many things. It was like in Syria prior to that, you couldn't. It was forbidden to say Israel. I used to have phone calls with friends of mine. They will say your state because they're not gonna normalize saying the word, because if someone hears them or
the secret police or
exactly,
whatever.
you will be in the dungeon, and it was terrible thing to have. So it wasn't even allowed to acknowledge Israel or say the word or anything like that. But now, knowing that they need help, and we the Druze people in Israel did in the past help them with money, and we give them a lot of support and love. So they had this chance, and they sent 300 people who have relatives, and most of them are religious prominent leaders. And the idea was to have those local leaders to try to normalize the idea. Like, I've been there in Israel, I saw
it's not as bad as they told you.
Exactly,
and
just to make it
a regular thing.
A regular thing. This is the word that I was looking.
So they came to Jethro's tomb, according to the tradition where he is, and this is the holiest place, I think, for the Druze.
Yeah. So they came for a religious pilgrimage.
But they also met family.
Exactly. I went there. It was a great celebration after 50 years of disconnection. Now you have this bond, and people. So I walked there, and you couldn't recognize who's Syrian, who's Israeli. Everybody was happy.
Yeah.
They smiled, and it's a religious pilgrimage, so it gave it
extra meaning.
Exactly. It was a beautiful day. And they stayed the night, and on Saturday 26th they came back to Syria. On Sunday you had a fake video which had like a stills picture of an elderly man, but they put a voice of a younger man. Everybody will see that this is not the person who's talking.
Okay.
And the talk was curses to the Prophet Muhammad and things like that. In a matter of hours, you had a total declaration of jihad against the Druze. Because
by who?
By mosques, by people.
Because like a popular sort of uprising.
Exactly. They saw this is what the Druze believe. They cursed our Prophet. They insulted. Let's get them. And a total mayhem started over there. By Tuesday, they occupied basically 2 suburb places in Damascus.
So these are people who are religious fanatical Muslims who see a fake video but use it to go after people they anyway hate.
Exactly.
Because they're not Muslims like them. And they go, and thousands of them basically voluntarily, because they're so full of hate, just drive to the areas of the Muslims with weapons that they have and start massacring the Muslims and actually conquering villages of Druze in this area, right?
Yeah, so basically the main action happened in Damascus, because we have two small cities called Sahnaya and Jaramana. They are not in Sweda province that I discussed earlier. We have around 100 to between 200 to 300,000 Druze in this ocean of Muslims, of 5 million Muslims in Damascus area. And they go back where we had Jewish neighborhoods in Damascus. So they are the remnants of this community, and they are very if Sweda is surrounded, and this
they're
place
way
is
more surrounded.
Exactly, this is worse.
So what happened there?
So there we saw the tactics of the regime. He would send ISIS fighters. They will come, they don't even try to hide it, and say they will start a local thing, a hustle, and people will shoot or defend themselves or something like that, and say, okay, we're going to send the general forces to put some order. So they will go in, with let's say Al Jazeera TV camera, and you will see, hey, we're coming here to put order. And there was a famous video of the mayor of Jaramana, who's coming to say hello and to meet the representatives. A day later, he was executed with his only son, because once you control the media, you control everything. And you will see, because this is what I do in my job, I take OSINT, media outlets,
social media things people put up. They're not even embarrassed of these stuff.
No.
They put it up themselves.
Exactly. They try. This is the whole. What is the meaning of terror if you cannot terrorize people with it? So they are very, as we saw it in October 7. The resemblance is so.
It's the same ideology.
It's the same ideology, the same people, the same thing.
So wait, in Damascus, in these two small cities on the outskirts of Damascus, municipalities or whatever you want to call it, there at the time, how many people do we estimate that they actually killed and kidnapped?
So more than 100 people were killed, massacred. I don't know, and they arrested a lot of them.
Arrested means they took them, and some of them we don't even know to this day what happened.
Which is,
we assume they're not around anymore.
But what happened and was very dangerous at the time is, so basically those two places fought for their independence, or because
for their existence.
Because as I said, civil war for 14 years, they used to have the security of themselves. So everybody have weapons and things like that. So they fought until they ran out of ammunition, and Israel basically at the time tried to intervene, but it had nothing to, because a small community in this large ocean, there's nothing that you could do, and they came with tanks. And
did they flee to the southern Syria, a lot of these Druze people, to their brethren?
No, what happened is that from the south of Syria, from Sweda, tried to come to help them. So to make it a little bit more, let's do a detour for a second. If we remember, the civil war started in Dar'a.
Yes.
So we have Sweda. Next to it, you have Dar'a, which is a Bedouin province. And once the let's call it a revolution, or the civil war erupted in 2011, it started in Dar'a.
Yes.
And what happened is that the regime, the Bashar al-Assad regime, just came and tried to
quash it.
Quash it in a very heinous way, like in a very aggressive way. So a lot of people from Dar'a, the Bedouins, fled to Sweda. And Sweda, the number of population doubled itself.
Because everyone ran away from where the killing was happening and the fighting and everything.
Exactly. So the Jews basically saved lives of a lot of Muslims because it's a solitude place, and they had some protection over there. So the Jews thought that the Dar'a people, the Bedouins, are their friends, and they had a very good relations. And even culturally, they had some very good. They thought favorably out of them. So basically, the Druze went back to what happened in April. The Jews who saw their brothers being massacred down in Damascus tried to go from Sweda to Damascus, and they've been ambushed by the Bedouins from Dara on the way, killing more than 70 people and blocking the way so they couldn't go and help their friends. And the Druze had a terrible day of fighting, and they're being betrayed. But the people
by their neighbors that they saved.
They ate their food, they drink their water, they lived with them. And one of the most important, one of the most famous things about the Druze culture is the hospitality. So they had those people, and once they saw weakness, they just massacred them and ambushed them. And then we could see that there's some coordination between
the regime and the Bedouin in the south.
Add to that it was the Independence Day in Israel, and we had great fires over here in Jerusalem. So nobody heard about it. And the whole coordination between ISIS, the Bedouin, the regime, all those things made us realize that it might be Turkey behind all of that, because you had drones, you had tanks, and everybody was working perfectly. And even, in my opinion, the fires in Israel was no accident there either. So we had a very terrible day, but it gave us like a glimpse of what's about to come, because the hatred kept coming. And now when they on July, the last massacre that we had, basically because the Druze seemed to be too stubborn for the local government. We occupied all Syria. You have this small minority. Let's go and crush them and call it a day.
Right.
I talked to a doctor from Sweden that told me that she saw in her eyes the row of artillery coming to crush your own citizen. You have tanks, missile launchers, and all those heavy weaponry against civilian villages coming. And in July, again, they declared jihad against the Druze because they perceived as Israeli proxy. And the jihadists are too weak to fight Israel.
Right.
So they go and fight the proxy, because although the Jews always kept saying, we are part of Syria, we want to be part of this, but we're not going to be a part of Islamic Caliphate because this is not our thing.
So in July, we started hearing different reports of something was happening. Something started. It started. I remember just in the news. So the way in Israel we started hearing about it was that people in Druze in Syria were calling Druze in Israel and saying, "This is very bad. What's happening? This is right." That's how
we saw it on the early moment, because what happened is basically after the events on April. The Bedouins start harassing the Druze, and they made those checkpoints. As I said, it's surrounded places, so any Druze who wanted to go to Damascus or go,
they couldn't.
They will have to go through those checkpoints, and people will start becoming missing and abducted and things like that. So we had this fruit dealer that came from Damascus with his vegetables and fruit. The Bedouins basically kidnapped him, stole his car, and stole his money, and he was found badly wounded, like 50 kilometers away or something like that. He was thrown in a place. So the Druze knew, we cannot keep up with it. We need to fight. So they went to the village where the people that did this did, and killed 3 of the Bedouins.
Uh-huh.
This started the whole thing, and as I said, those harassments are intentionally made to put the Druze...
To provoke them.
To provoke them, exactly. So this started the whole thing, and the regime started to say, there's a beef between the Druze and the Bedouins. We need to have forces to come and put things in order. And they start mobilizing a large amount of
soldiers
forces,
and weapons.
Forces that, as I said, it was 35 kilometer long of heavy machinery going to Sweda, trying to just crush them. Above that, there was a total jihad declared in the country because of those intense events. So people would drive 10 hours, 11 hours going to Sweden, and because they don't know the place, you had people it went for 2 or 3 days. The tension was building up, the forces coming, everybody. We saw that there's a huge disaster coming, but as I said, no Jews, no news. And you had people all over Syria saying, if you want to go to massacre the Druze, go this way. If you go this way, you will get lost. Sweda is from this way.
So it was also like people that so hate the Druze there that they were actually giving directions to this way to kill the Druze, this way to the massacre, and pointing them so that they get there faster.
Exactly.
Faster to kill the Druze. Okay, so then this is happening, and when does it come to a head? When does the massacre start happening?
It started in July 13, where the forces, the general forces, you've seen them in the uniform, some of them wearing ISIS patches, with the Bedouins, coming and basically genociding anything that happened. They, beheaded small children, raped small girls. They basically, it's like, imagine October 7, just on steroids, that kept for 7 days, something like that.
How many people were killed at the end of the 7 days that we know?
For now, we have more than 2,000 people that officially dead that we know about. For example, we had at some point on July 16, as I said 7 days, but it was 3 days, sorry, until Israel
started.
But I had this video because I reported those things. I had this video of a doctor saying, we are in the National Hospital of Sweda, and you'll see the hospital is jammed with elderly, with sick, with wounded people. And a couple of hours later, and she's saying the general security are surrounding us, and we are scared, and we have no electricity and everything. And few hours later, you'll see the same place, all in blood, and everybody were executed, no matter how and who. The surrounding of the hospital, we had some national news that came and saw this place because bodies were everywhere. Like, you will go to the street and you'll see packs of bodies, one on top of the other, and it's endless. And it was really terrible thing to have.
So this is 3 days where this massacre is continuing. The Druze there are, if I remember correctly, trying to fight back and as much as they can, but it's obviously like you have the full force of an army with, like you said, tanks and mortars and drones and everything, all this equipment, which makes it almost impossible for local communities to fight back. And then the Druze in Israel are seeing this happening to their brothers, and in Israel, we hear giant uproar of the Druze saying, we need to help our brothers. And at the beginning, Israel was very hesitant because, for different reasons. We have enough, people were saying we have enough stuff. We have
I can name the reason behind all that. It's Tom Barak.
Tom Barak.
Tom Barak.
Who is he?
He's Mr. Trump, the president guy to the Middle East, and he's somehow...
Tom Burke. Burke.
Tom
Barak or Burke? I think his name is Burke.
Okay.
So he's the U.S. envoy to Syria.
Exactly.
So he was telling Israel not to get involved,
Exactly.
basically. But then Israel realized that the Druze are being slaughtered, and there are brothers of our best citizens, the people who are putting their lives on the line for us. And Israel started bombing certain areas, first of all, trying to keep back the forces of the massacres, but also they bombed certain places in Damascus as a warning to the Syrian government, like, stop it or we can hurt you worse, and all this kind of stuff. So, and then when did it end? So give us like
Okay, so in April it ended. Back to April for a second, because there's an important piece of information that I missed. Is it ended when Israel bombed near the palace of Bashar. So once this happened, everybody retreated, which...
Up until the palace. That's
exactly. Which says basically, says it all. So now what happened is Israel, once it started bombing, the forces were inside Sueda city, with tanks, with all their equipment. But other than that, you had thousands of people basically trying to, make their money by looting, by kidnapping women, by killing, by doing with the mayhem that they are used to. This is their thing, basically. So once Israel bombed, those people scattered in the villages and everywhere, and the Air Force is very limited in this situation. So the Druze tried to defend themselves with no communication, with no basic things, but still they somehow succeeded to push the ISIS forces, and basically, after a few days, what happened is that Israel bombed the headquarters of chief of staff of the Jolani forces, and that stopped the whole thing.
They bombed the offices of the chief of staff, like the headquarters?
The headquarters.
And at that point, I guess they gave an order, but for some reason, the looters, not the looters, but the army or the terrorists that were doing the massacring pulled away from the area.
Not all of them, the official ones that had to do it, everyone who had basically uniform, but they kept their proxies, and the proxies are the Bedouins. They say, those guys are out of law, they're out, and you don't want us to be there. But once they retreated, the Bedouins couldn't do much more damage because the Druze could push them away. And
the Druze are very strong fighters, like we said, and very brave fighters. And they, at that point, when the entire big equipment was taken out, they were able to do a lot of the defending themselves and push a lot of these Bedouin terrorists out of the villages. But tell me, there are villages to this day that
more than 30.
30 they're medium-sized villages.
We have more than 200,000 people who basically their villages were gone, and now Bedouins...
Where do they live now, these people?
As I said, hospitality, culture in the Druze community, a lot of people hosted families, friends in public places like schools and things like that, but still severely suffering from a very severe humanitarian crisis. We had people dying because you have no insulin, no basic needs for antibiotics and things like that. So the place there is a disaster, and it's living basically only from the help of Israel that is deploying humanitarian aid.
Israel is dropping in or shipping in humanitarian aid, food
It's
and
deploying by air because
airdropping them.
Airdropping them, yeah.
So right now, the situation is that you have a very big humanitarian crisis. Supposedly, Israel is talking in Europe something with the Syrian regime to try to get a deal where the Syrian regime doesn't go to southern Syria, and that way, and Israel in return, I guess, will stop bombing it in northern Syria. So you can do whatever you want in the north, just leave our friends, the Druze in the south, alone.
Exactly.
But at the same time, you told me that the Druze in Syria are contemplating, they're thinking about it, whether it would be best for them to actually declare independence from the Syrian
They
people.
did. They already did.
Yeah, but in a way that would be more like, right now we don't really hear about it because right now we just want to get out of this massacre.
Yeah.
But in a way that would be more like official and get Israel's support for this. You have been working on like, how do we work? What's the best way forward?
Okay, well, first thing is, once this happened, I was interviewed by South African radio, and she told me that the South African government is condemning Israel for bombing in Damascus.
Yeah, of course.
And so basically, anyone who listens, Israel did save the Druze. It saved them after we, the Druze in Israel, basically opened the borders from Israel, wanted to go and fight and help our friends with any means that we had, and this basically
pushed the army and the government to start doing it seriously.
Yeah, this shifted the whole idea, but the humanitarian crisis is still. But nevertheless, the Druze spiritual leader, now everybody knows who's a friend, who's a foe.
Yes.
And you will see that the main square of the Druze in Sweda have Israeli flags colored in it because they try to provoke the provokers, and you see them with pen and paper, with any means, because they don't have Israeli flags, trying to draw Israeli flags and putting them in demonstrations against next to the Druze flags.
Can I just ask you one thing about this? Because we spoke about this before, that after pretty much right after the Bashar Assad fell, the Druze in Syria, the elders, all said they want to join Israel. They want to be, I guess, annexed into Israel.
The ones who are lucky enough that they are very close
on the border,
to Israel.
yeah. Right.
And it took them
Do you think that's a possibility? Because I know you're in touch with a lot of people high up in Israel, and you talked to them about this, and because you have a lot of connections. Is this something that people have told you that Israel is actually contemplating on doing, or the Americans are saying don't?
Well, this is what is interesting and why I think that we need to focus on what's happening with the Druze, because what is going to happen next will say if Israel have a strategy, or because there's in Hebrew say mikablei achlatot, people who take
decision
makers. In Israel, we don't have that.
No, we don't. No one makes decisions.
I call it megivei tguvot.
Yes.
People who respond to things that happen. The Gazans will come and massacre us on October 7th. We will respond, but we don't have a broader strategy. But the Druze somehow force Israel to say, hey, you've been here for a long time. You are you are the United States in the Middle East. We want to be part of you. We want to have what you are having, like we saw in our own eyes with the Druze in Israel. They are free. They have free speech. They have free markets. We want a part of that, and that makes somehow compels Israel to make a strategy of what's happening.
So what's the strategy?
In my opinion, let's put it by this way. If Israel will decide not to do anything, you will have, a Gazan state or ISIS state in the northern part of Israel, but this time it's not a small strip of 300 kilometers. It's a state with approach to the Mediterranean.
And with
a
Turkish
fleet,
weapons.
with all sort of things that you don't want them in your border. And as we saw in the ideology, because those people, when they killed the Druze, they said, "You Israeli pig." So they killed them as Jews. But they were thinking of the Jews, but they did it for the Druze. So this is one major thing that Israel need to consider. So in my opinion, if you'll take back what President Trump said, if we remember when he put a pen on the table and said, Israel is too thin, but it needs to grow bigger. So I say, okay, to Egypt, it's not gonna happen. Not now, I don't know, because we gave them Sinai. Peninsula, so we're not going there. On Jordan, again, we're not gonna be there. So the only place that we basically can go is either Lebanon or Syria, and Israel did expand
a little bit.
So I say,
why not?
Why not?
And especially that the only problem is if it depends who the people in the area are. So if these are areas without really a large Sunni Muslim population and only Druze population, and they want to become part, and let's say they have a referendum where they vote for it, the people, and it overwhelmingly passes, I think that we should seriously consider it.
Population exchange, and I checked the prices in the market, because add to that, although Israel expanded its territory, but there's still more than 150,000 kilometers that Baron Rothschild bought 100 years ago in that place. It's called the Har Bashan, the
Har Bashan, yeah.
So this place is in the Bible. It's in the Israeli territory, and Rothschild knew that, and he tried to buy land. So we have Israeli lands over there. That's a starter. And, a dunam, like 1,000 meters in that place cost between $4,000 and $5,000. The whole Dar'a province is 10 million of those dunams. So basically, in $100 billion, you can buy the whole province. Okay, just
if it's for sale.
If it's for sale. So I say, President Trump is a deal maker, and if you'll give, I always say that if you give the people, the opportunity of having something that they can't imagine yet, because if you offer those Bedouins, because Bedouins are not settlers.
Right. They move around a lot.
They move around a lot. So if you say, okay, I'll give you a land and money to build your own house and, start a new start, but in other place, and we will have our Druze coming in. Maybe you can have their houses in Damascus or whatever that. It's like, it's not that far-fetched, in my opinion. That
how many Muslims or let's say Christians and Druze in that area, or maybe the Christians can move to there or whatever. But how many Muslim people are in the area that we're talking about between Israel and where the Druze are?
So
I heard there's like 500,000 maybe.
As I said, always it's only estimations.
A lot of people ran away.
Between 500,000 to 1 million, we don't really know. But the largest population is very next to Jordan. So basically, maybe Jordan could annex them, and then we'll have this corridor that everybody is talking about. But we will have a lot of Christians that know what's happening, because it's not safe for the Christians, that would like to come and live in this province or state or independent Israeli mandate or whatever you call it. And this will work best, because the Druze will have this state that will have reach out for the outer world through the Mediterranean and the port of Haifa. And Israel will have this buffer state that will help them
with this new jihadi country above us. Can I just say one thing that just in general, it's so weird that we talk about the Christians in the Middle East are disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
We've had in Lebanon, they used to be either half or even sometimes more than half, depending on when. They're like a small minority right now. There in Syria, almost all of them ran away, fled, not ran away. They fled from persecution. In Egypt, the Coptic Christians are very much persecuted, and most of them already have left. The only place where they've actually grown over the years and since 47, 48 is here in Israel.
Yeah.
And then they're now under attack again, right? The Christians are also under attack by this. They're also kafirs, kafar, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They also aren't Muslims. So it's very weird that a lot in the West, which have Christian backgrounds, which have the Judeo-Christian ideals, you would think in the West, they don't really like Israel. But Israel is the one that's right now, like you explained, even though it took you guys to push it, but they did bomb the places and stop the massacre for this. They did. They
saved the day, no doubt.
They are giving humanitarian aid to their Druze
They are the only people helping the Druze, and the Druze, their only sin that they are not Muslim, and they ask for secular country.
Yes.
Is that too much to ask, Mr.
Right,
Europe?
and no one knows about it. And the weird thing is, and I will just say that I think one of the reasons is that Europe wants to get rid of the Syrian migrants. They can't take it anymore. So they're willing to forgive Mr. Ashara for massacring the Druze and maybe Christians and Alawites, whoever, as long as they can give him back at some point all of their migrants from Syria, which are mostly Sunni radical Muslims. And they are doing, we hear a lot about the migrant crisis in the UK and in France and in this. And these countries can't wait for Mr. Ashara, Julani, whatever his name is, to take control so they can just throw everybody back. And they're willing to just pass over all of the things that he's doing. That's just my feeling, because you hear it. Oh, Syria's going to get better, and they could slowly come back.
I think that it's a lot of fear out of Islam, saying, we don't understand this, so we will try to be nice and hope that you're not gonna kill us.
Western guilt also.
There are a lot of things, and the combination, like if you think about gays for Gaza, queers for Palestine,
yes, exactly.
This combination between socialist and ideas and notions and Islamism, because they have a lot of common.
It's very weird.
It's very weird.
The only commonality is that they hate the West.
And they have the idea of one great country that everybody are the same and
by
they
the
are
way,
equal.
I want to say, Ayan Khirsi Ali was twice on my show. And the first time, she said something, it's so true. She said, when you look at the protests in these college campuses, you have the Islamists and you have the radical leftists. And she said, the problem is the radical leftists, all they want to do is just throw down the country, just tear it down. Civilization. They don't have a plan what will be after.
Yeah.
You know who has the plan? The Islamists. And you know who is not in that plan? The Western leftists. They'll be thrown off the roofs.
Exactly.
So they come together to destroy their enemies, but their real enemy are those people. They're the worst of the worst.
Yeah, well,
The gays for the Islamists? My God.
Yeah. Well, this is, totally getting it wrong.
Yeah.
One-on-one Islam, what is the whole idea about it? But this is what's so disturbing about what's happening in Europe, because, you used to be states with some balls. Sorry for my English.
Some national pride, belief in your ideals, anything.
Exactly, and yielding all the time to those ideologies is so crazy. And yes, if you want to get rid of those immigrants, it's okay. But since you have this power over the Syrian country, you should push your ideologies to that, because to remind you, you needed to have hundreds of years of war between France and England and Germany and 2 world wars to come with your ideas that this is the way to build a state, and you should put it to states that are not states, are trying to...
Plus, you should have thought about it before, when you let 1 million plus people in under Merkel, and then Europe is totally open. The whole thing is they're using their mistakes that they did 10 years ago to punish the people who are stayed there and fought for their freedoms.
Exactly.
It's disgusting, by the way. I think it's just not moral.
And add to that, although you have in Europe a lot of people that they are hardcore ISIS believers,
Yes.
but still you have people who somehow, had skills or somehow integrated in the community, and those people that you want them back to Syria to build a state and not to
They don't want to come back.
allow. I think there a lot of Druze people would love to come back
If it's safe.
if it's safe, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is why you should put your power in trying to say what you believe in and not just only
Yeah.
to play nice all the time. It's crazy.
Khalifa, it was a pleasure talking to you.
It's a
We're out
pleasure
of
so
time.
much.
I could talk to you for like another 2 hours here. But I just think, guys, when you hear the news about like how Israel is bad and how much we're just doing all these bad things, you should know that there are people with us here like Khalifa and his community that live with us, that fight with us, that thrive with us. And not to say there aren't problems, and we can talk about that at a different time, but the fact is that his brothers and sisters are under right now threat. Some of them we don't know where they are. They've been kidnapped. So when you're looking for a cause, no one is talking about it.
Yeah.
No one knows what's happening.
Definitely.
No one cares. Like you said, no Jews, no news. And so I think this is a topic that we should put at the forefront. And in the next protest you see against Israel, ask the people if they're going to protest also for the Druze in Syria.
I hope so.
And in Lebanon and all these other places where they're under threat. And they don't deserve to be under this threat. They have not attacked their neighbors over the years. They haven't done anything. They're only being under threat because they're a religious minority and someone who is not comfortable for the current regime that they're there. And so, guys, please research this and do your best to get the word out. And I thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Ariel. Such a privilege. Thank you so much.